To begin, welcome to the video on how large cash reserves can quietly cost you real money over time. We will explore the trade-off between psychological comfort and mathematical optimization, and we will map out a practical plan to keep enough cash for safety while moving the rest into more tax-efficient and growth-oriented places. Next, here is our roadmap for the episode. We will cover why excessive cash drags on returns, how to right-size your emergency fund, immediate tax and yield upgrades for your cash, where to put the excess for long-term growth, whether to prioritize mortgage payoff, a concise 90-day action plan, and a short quiz before we wrap with key takeaways. Now let's set the stage. Holding a lot of cash feels safe, especially after experiencing job instability or market volatility. But safety has an invisible price. Taxes on low yields, inflation eroding buying power, and the opportunity cost of not compounding in higher return assets. For high net worth households with large balances earning less than roughly 4% and fully taxed at ordinary income rates, this can be a meaningful drag on long-term wealth. Moving forward, here is the core tension: psychological comfort versus mathematical optimization. Comfort is not irrational. It protects against anxiety and supports good decision-making. However, inflation and taxes quietly reduce the effectiveness of large idle balances. The resolution is not all or nothing. It is a rules-based plan that preserves liquidity for emergencies, optimizes yield and taxes on the safe portion, and channels the rest into diversified growth. Next, this flowchart shows the decision path. Start by assessing your total cash. Determine how many months of essential expenses are currently covered. If you have more than 12 months, right-size down towards 6 to 12 months, unless your situation warrants more. If you are within 6 to 12 months, keep it as is. If you are below 6 months, prioritize topping up. After setting the emergency fund, optimize its yield and tax treatment using T-bills or Treasury money market funds. Owned. Then deploy any excess cash to higher impact areas. First, maximizing tax-advantaged accounts. Next, funding 529 plans for future educational liabilities. And finally, investing the remaining funds into broad market index funds in a brokerage account. Conclude with an annual review and rebalance. Consequently, rethink the size of your emergency fund. For many households, 6 to 12 months of essential expenses is an appropriate range. Keeping more than 18 months is typically hyper-conservative and should be recognized as a deliberate trade-off against potential long-term returns. Exceptions exist: highly variable incomes, a single-earner household, health concerns, immigration or visa considerations, or known near-term job risk. Choose a number within the range, document it, and include your reasons so you can stick to the plan under stress. Before investing in markets, compare parking options for your emergency fund and near cash. High-yield savings accounts are liquid but fully taxable at federal and state levels. Treasury bills and many Treasury money market funds offer competitive yields, with the advantage that interest is generally exempt from state income tax. All are highly liquid, with T-bills tradable and Treasury money market funds typically settling next day. Understand risk structures, purchase locations, and tax implications when choosing among them. Now, optimize the safe portion before touching the market. When yields are comparable, moving from a fully taxable high-yield savings account to Treasury bills or Treasury money market funds can increase your after-tax return due to state tax exemptions. Maintain full liquidity for your emergency fund by choosing short maturities or money market structures. Label the account to reduce temptation and set automated roll instructions so cash does not sit idle between maturities. Next, this pie diagram illustrates a sample allocation for context. 20% is reserved for an emergency fund, 10% for short-term goals, 30% is allocated toward tax-advantaged channels such as 401k, 403b, and Roth IRAs via contribution redirection, and 40% is directed into broad, low-cost index funds in a taxable brokerage account. The exact percentages should reflect your specific needs, risk tolerance, and timeline. Building on that, here is a step-by-step path. First, right-size your emergency fund and document the rationale. Second, move that fund into treasuries or Treasury money market funds to reduce state income taxes while maintaining liquidity. Third, maximize workplace retirement plans by letting more of your paycheck flow into them and using cash to cover expenses. Fourth, contribute to Roth IRAs or use a backdoor Roth if eligible. Fifth, Increase 529 plan contributions for future education. 6th, dollar cost average the remaining cash into broad market index funds in your brokerage account. Finally, schedule an annual review to rebalance and optimize taxes. Additionally, prioritize tax-advantaged accounts. Increase your workplace retirement contributions, and use some of your existing cash to cover your living costs during the ramp-up. If your income exceeds Roth IRA limits, consider the backdoor Roth process where appropriate. Automate the investments to align with payday so your plan runs without constant manual effort. Meanwhile, address future liabilities through 529 college savings plans. Many families underfund these relative to retirement. 529 plans grow tax-advantaged for qualified education expenses, and some states provide tax deductions or credits for contributions. Choose an age-based or custom allocation that reduces risk as the child approaches college age. Next, for remaining funds, use a taxable brokerage account for diversified growth. Emphasize low-cost, broad market index funds such as total U.S. and total international equities. Use dollar cost averaging to manage timing risk. Where appropriate and legal, consider tax loss harvesting to manage taxable income. Remember that brokerage assets remain liquid but carry higher volatility than cash. Now, let's compare early mortgage payoff versus investing. Paying off the mortgage early yields a guaranteed return equal to the mortgage interest rate and may provide psychological relief. However, it reduces liquidity and can create opportunity costs, especially if your rate is around 3.4% and markets are expected to deliver higher returns over time. Investing excess cash historically provides a higher expected return than a low fixed-rate mortgage, preserves liquidity, but introduces volatility and requires discipline. With low fixed rates, the math usually favors investing, though personal risk tolerance matters. At this point, here is a quick question. For most households seeking a balance of safety and growth, what is a reasonable emergency fund target? Is it 3 months of essential expenses, 6 to 12 months of essential expenses, 18 to 24 months of total spending, or whatever is left after investing? You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. Moving on. The correct answer is 6 to 12 months of essential expenses. This range balances resilience with the opportunity cost of holding too much idle cash. While certain situations justify more, keeping 18 or more months is usually hyper-conservative and should be recognized as a trade-off with long-term returns. Next, here is a suggested 90-day plan. In Week 1, calculate essential monthly expenses and set your emergency fund target. In Week 2, transition the emergency fund into T-bills or a Treasury money market fund. In Weeks 3 and 4, increase 401k or 403b contribution percentages and plan for Roth contributions if eligible. In Month 2, increase 529 savings. Through Months 2 and 3, begin dollar cost averaging the surplus into broad index funds. At the end of Month 3, conduct your first review and rebalance as needed. Before we continue, please note this is educational content and not financial, tax, or legal advice. Yields, tax laws, and product details change over time and vary by jurisdiction. Examples such as Treasury bills or specific fund tickers are illustrations, not endorsements. Consult your own advisor and review current regulations for your circumstances. To wrap the how-to portion, here is a succinct checklist in writing. Define your emergency fund target, typically 6 to 12 months of essentials. Move that emergency reserve to treasuries or Treasury money market funds to improve after-tax yield. Increase workplace retirement contributions and use cash to cover living costs while contributions ramp. Maximize or backdoor a Roth IRA if eligible. Raise 529 contributions. Dollar cost average remaining funds into low-cost index funds in your brokerage account. Finally, schedule an annual review for rebalancing and tax planning. Continuing to the key points. Psychological comfort is valid, but should be weighed against quantifiable costs. Right-size your emergency fund to 6 to 12 months unless you have compelling reasons to hold more. Optimize the safe cash with treasuries for potential state tax advantages. Direct excess cash into tax-advantaged accounts, then 529s, and finally diversified index funds. If you hold a low-rate mortgage, investing will often be mathematically superior to early payoff. Automation helps you execute consistently. Finally, here is the bottom line. Decide on a comfort level and write it down so you can follow it under pressure. Secure the short term with tax-efficient cash equivalents. Then, deploy every remaining dollar with intention into growth assets so compounding can work for you. Small optimizations add up dramatically over time. As a creative send-off, if this video clarified how to turn idle cash into a plan, please like, share, and subscribe for more practical, high-signal finance content. In the comments, tell us, what is your emergency fund target, and what change will you make in the next 7 days? Your insights can help others take action.